September 2nd, 1945, just after World War II and two atomic bombs that marked history forever. Our species annihilated each other mercilessly for years, creating and evolving technologies of mass destruction, which many times went beyond what we could ever imagine. The expansion of these detonations probably reached the farthest corners of the universe, where for the first time the human species was calling the attention of the cosmos and its mysteries. Right after these terrifying events, sightings of unidentified objects increased exponentially. Did we attract the attention of those beings who had been monitoring us for many years? Could UFOs have been interested in these calls for destruction? Being pressured by so many sightings, the concern and tension of the government increased to the point of opening official projects for the deep investigation of mysterious cases that could be threats to national security. Here was born what would become one of the most secret projects in the world, Project Blue Book, born in 1952 with the purpose of investigating flying objects and extraterrestrial life. However, years later, this enigmatic project would be closed and completely erased with many inconclusive answers. Now, with the recent new facts, we have entered a new era of contact and research, an era in which almost nothing can be hidden and in which priority is given to those inexplicable facts that put in check our solitude in the universe. But will this new Blue Book really explore each of the existing secrets? Or will it just be one more layer to cover the great secret of UFOs? Mankind has always looked to the skies for meaning, but as our yearning for knowledge has reached farther into the depths of space, the search becomes for the answer to the question, are we alone? If you seek the truth, like, subscribe, click the bell icon. Join us. This is what the world needs. This is disclosure. Around the world since ancient times, there have been records of sightings of foreign bodies at high speed with abnormal movements, or at least not possible for humans today. Many of these records are also guarded by governments, since without a doubt they are part of the global intrigue. A jungle full of secrets, conspiracies, myths, legends, threats, and disappearances. This and more is what surrounds UFOs and their possible existence. We could say that there have been many civilizations that have existed and documented the evolution and history of our world. Among these records in each of our ancestral cultures, we can observe how there are observations about us. Gods who came to help, of lights, of people with reptilian bodies, of advanced civilizations that help make our evolution possible. The truth is that even without the certainty that they exist, they have already left their mark on the minds of each person in the world, and many others have left their mark on history and on the hearts of people due to the brutalities, kidnappings, and torture they have experienced because of this mysterious and enigmatic subject. Among each of all existing mysteries that surround our world, there is one that has undoubtedly stood out among all, the Blue Book Project. And you will surely wonder, what was this project about that turned the whole world upside down? Between 1952 and 1969, the U.S. and its Air Force conducted a series of studies on UFO sightings. And even though the program ended more than 50 years ago, each of their incredible stories and findings have further filled the intrigue and doubts regarding unidentified flying objects. Doubts and intrigues that grow endlessly every day and every year. Now, after so many years in the dark, the U.S. government is finally getting back into the UFO business, and this time around, they seem to have focused even more deeply on it. And it's important to note that between 2007 and 2012, the U.S. government spent about $22 million on a new study of UFOs called UAP, or Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. With these studies underway, by January 2019, the government was showing an indelible interest, making public the official studies of high-tech experiments used in its practices, which even included invisibility cloaks. Little distractions, you might think, but it wasn't until the spring of 2020 that the Pentagon officially released a batch of unexplained UFO videos. Shortly thereafter, the U.S. Department of Defense approved the establishment of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. This marked a before and after for all the popularizers, scientists, and explorers who are in charge of discovering each one of the mysteries that surround these sightings. After many decades, Washington has formally studied UFOs in an exhaustive manner. However, for ufologists, it is important to wait for what the fruits will be in order to celebrate. And it is that the ufologist movement has grown without stopping year after year, which has been caused by the cover-ups and secrets maintained by the government. For the same reason, many find it hard to believe that this could be happening. Will this be one more step to a resurgence or an even bigger cover-up? We do not know, but the truth is that we are facing one of the biggest topics with verifiable stories of ultra-secretism. It may be that this office does not mean that new resources will be focused on the investigation and exploration of UFOs. It may go a little further than that, beyond what we can imagine at this time. Today, there are former members of the government who have fostered interest in each of these phenomena that have become visible in the skies. We are talking about Luis Elizondo and Christopher Mellon, who are deeply concerned that once again, this initiative will be buried in the depths of the Pentagon. Between criticism, mysteries, and fears, these former members of the government have made it clear that one of the most important factors to overcome at this time is the issue of secrecy and how to prevent the Pentagon from taking it up again. In a nutshell, the new office has become instrumental in finally forcing the government to reveal that it has had contact with aliens for decades. It is, without a doubt, a radical change brought about by the work of thousands of people and activists from every corner of the world over more than 70 years. People who have dedicated their entire lives to the exploration and investigation of each of these inexplicable phenomena that have happened and surely will not stop happening. For now, though, the government and its national security establishment have more concerns about land. Immediately, the Department of Defense hastened to create the new Air Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group, which will be in charge of identifying, evaluating, and choosing which objects are important and of interest to submit them to investigation. And despite each of the protests and the real interest of the world in knowing what exists behind all this mystery, the Army has made it clear that at this time, its greatest importance is to focus on unauthorized incursions into restricted spaces, whether they are bases, military, or government structure. A way to limit the scope of investigations, perhaps? Just as for many it is a possible step for great discoveries and advances, for others considered villains and debunkers of UFOs, this news has seemed like news that would put at risk even the serious work of each of the military pilots who undergo this research. Whatever the new office reveals, the most important thing is not to make those who believe even more, but to propose a research space that is as important as our existence in the universe. Whether or not the government recognizes what has been happening for millions of years is not what is really important. What is really important is to really find out what the truth is. This place, in addition to clarifying many things, will undoubtedly also add fuel to the fire. Could it be the birth of the new Blue Book? And it is that, despite the fact that the Blue Book has had many UFO reports, many of them never found an explanation. By the time it was time to bury him, each of its members and officials had collected more than 12,600 reports of UFO sightings. And guess what? Of all of them, more than 700 were never explained. It was by 1952 that more than 1,500 UFOs were sighted, a chilling figure. Coincidentally, in subsequent years, it became a crime for police and military personnel to discuss this issue in any of its forms. To everyone's surprise, whoever flouted this law ran the risk of spending up to 2 years in prison. You will think that it is not much, but it is important to remember that before the Blue Book project, there were also other projects that were destroyed and disappeared from the face of the earth. Yes, we are talking about the Sign Project, which arose in 1947 from the sightings experienced by private pilot Kenneth Arnold, who, according to established reports, saw 9 UFOs flying slowly over Washington's Mount Rainier. As the investigations became public and the pilot's sightings came to light, the public went wild for the so-called flying saucers. After a little time, the US decides in a certain way to start an investigation to find out if these flying objects would represent a potential threat to national security. Through what did he do it? Through the SIGN project to determine if such objects were a threat. To everyone's surprise, by 1948, the studies of this project published a document called Estimate of the Situation, where they undoubtedly raised the possibility that each of these sightings were aliens. Before long, everything fell silent and gradually disappeared until it reached the point where they destroyed the document and launched a more skeptical investigation in the late 1940s called Project Grudge. And it was like that, as time later, Blue Book arrived to fill us with an unparalleled intrigue. And so, as time goes by, the more we investigate history, we realize that everything goes beyond what it seems. Culture, languages, the possibility of the existence of other lives. What would you do if, for the first time, you publicly initiate extraterrestrial contact? What would humanity do? The questions are endless and are undoubtedly related to the research focuses of science and governments. The days go by, the sightings happen, they are reported and kept in documents. The time has come not to normalize it. The time has come to investigate and really discover what the truth is.